Welcome to the Pages of Light podcast, your destination for discussions of popular fantasy and science fiction novels from a Christian worldview. My name is Tyler, aka Varum, and with me, as always, is Gabriel, aka the Quarantine Quartermaster. Welcome back to the podcast, Gabe.
Hey, it's good to be back. Excited to talk about this with Tyler, aka Varum. I know that he's been looking forward to reviewing some media. He's always told me he wants to read the book first and then, see the show. So I'm interested to hear his thoughts on on the Wheel of Time tonight. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so when Gabe says this, he means season 1 of the Wheel of Time TV show, which is has just last Friday. Well, whenever this releases, it'll be last Friday. Whenever the season 1 finished. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about season 1, our thoughts, things we liked, things we didn't like. We're going to do some comparison to the book, of course, since we just got finished doing 3 podcasts on the first book of the series. And then we'll do our final thoughts, and then we'll talk about some things we hope to see in season 2, and things that like storylines we want to see, characters we want to meet, and so that's going to be the general plan for this episode here. And make sure you go to pagesoflight.com to check out all the stuff we're doing over there, and you can also follow us on social media: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Goodreads as well. So yeah, let's just jump into it. So I think we'll just start off giving just some, if you haven't watched the show at all, or read the books, I guess, some non-spoiler talk, just a little bit of would we recommend it, I guess, is the question. Do you think it's a good show in general, and would you recommend it to somebody else watching it?
Yes, I think it's a good show, and I would recommend, especially if you're going in cold turkey. It's a really fun and fast-paced way to jump into a realm that's kind of like The Hobbit, and this fantasy land with creatures and monsters that don't exist here on our plane of existence. Yep. And yeah, I think it's a fun kind of wild ride.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think it's a good show, and I do think this would, I'm trying to think of whenever I saw the Lord of the Rings movies, that inspired me to go back and read the books and get more immersed in that world. And I think if you saw this show and you hadn't read any of the books, that it would inspire you to go back and read the books, which is, I think, is high praise for the show, because you don't want it to be like somebody sees the show and then they're like, oh, I never want to read the books now. So I think it does a good job in that way, just the whole explaining the world of the Wheel of Time, and making it engaging and interesting, and not boring. But yeah, so I think in general, I would recommend it to anybody. I think it's really good.
Those of you into fantasy and stuff.
Yeah, sure. If you're into fantasy, if you don't like fantasy, then you might not like it, because it is pretty high fantasy, magic, and interesting creatures,
fantastical creatures.
Yeah, fantastical creatures. But if you like fantasy, you will probably dig this show a lot.
Indulge.
So yes, so that concludes non-spoiler recommendations and stuff.
Which is hard to do.
Yeah, because
that part's over.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to. Well, one other thing about the non-spoiler, I will say, is the performances by all the actors are really good. So I think all the acting is done really well, and I think the portrayal of all the different characters that are in the books is done really well. So I think that the casting itself is done really well, and I think that just helps to make it a good show, because even if you have the best source material in the world, if you have bad casting or actors that don't aren't into the role, then you can have a bad experience with the show, just because maybe you can tell that the acting isn't on point, or whatever. But I do think that was a good point for the show, which is non-spoilery, but it also leads me into like high points of the season and what I liked about it. Is the casting is just really well done, and I think all the portrayal of the characters is great, especially the Emmons Field folk, Rand, Perrin, Mats, Egwene, Nynaeve. I think all of the casting, and Moraine and Lan as well. I think all of those actors did a really good job on portraying their characters and who they were, who they seemed to be in the books, and like how the book describes them to be. I thought like all their personalities were well done by all of those actors. I don't know, did you feel the same way?
I thought that they got Moraine spot on.
Yep.
I don't know the actor's name who was Moraine, but
Rosamund
she was
Pike.
awesome. Yeah, awesome. Lan was really good, and Rand was also really good. I thought that those three were spot on.
Sure.
And Nynaeve did a good job, but they did not capture her anger. Like, she is so angry in the book. Like,
Yeah.
I did not feel the anger that Nynaeve has in the book. She's angry about everything in the book.
Yeah.
Like, she's always like, the light burn you, you Aes Sedai. Like, she can't stand the Aes Sedai, and she's, the light burn you, and she's just not that angry in there. That's okay. She's like,
I guess they don't want to make her like super unlikable for the show. Like they don't want you to hate Nynaeve, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I don't really think that I hated her in the book. I just think, you might be right that they don't. Maybe she just doesn't have enough scenes where she can show that, because there wasn't a ton of scenes where she's just talking directly to Moraine, I don't think, in the show. So maybe there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for her to kind of show that. But there's going to be a ton of seasons of this show, so hopefully that can be shown in later seasons. Other high points. I think like all of like the world building portions of the show were really well done. Like the costume design and like the set design and making you feel like those were real places. I just think all of that kind of stuff was really well done in the like making you like imagining how it would be like reading the book and then seeing it in the show. I feel like they captured a lot of the scenes really well, and like especially like the cities, like the White Tower, when we get to go to the White Tower. Like I loved all of that kind of stuff. In book one, we don't really get to go to the White Tower technically, but seeing that kind of stuff and all the political stuff, I think was really well done as well. Just kind of painting the picture of like the different factions and like the power struggle. So like that whole part of the world building was really cool as well. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that or anything specifically that you really loved in the show?
The production value was like really high. Like you said, the costume, the wardrobe, the sets were all really well done. But I also want to highlight, I thought that the visual effects for the One Power were done well. Like the way that Moraine summons her energy and it's, it coalesces around her, and it's got these like striking, like kind of white wisps that move like air, like having power within it that she's controlling. I thought that was a really good way to visualize it, and for people who are not deep in the lore of the Wheel of Time, they, if these things just kind of started happening, people would be like, what's going on? I know she's doing it, but and then also how they made some of the tendrils like dark when it was going to a male who was channeling, kind of give you that impression of, the taint that lies upon the true source. And
or like just the two sides of the power.
Yeah. And how the male side is corrupted and leading, to a dark power. So, and then I also think that the way that they wove the story was very, like the way they explained the overarching themes that took like a whole book to come out. and they would do it in like a few concise scenes in the season. They unpacked a lot of information in the exchanges that they had with the characters. So I agree with everything you say, and then I also wanted to highlight the visual effects on kind of how the Aes Sedai magic worked, and then just how I don't know, I just felt like I could really comprehend the world a lot better, a lot faster from the show than I did from the book. Like I said, the book was a journey of discovery. Like, oh, here's a new thing. Here's a new thing. And then they like in the season, they just kind of like tell it to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
I think most of the special effects were pretty well done. I think in the last episode, there were some special effects that weren't super great. I was watching a video of someone going over some stuff, and like the Trollocs at the end, towards that like last battle scene, like they just looked really bad, the CG. They might fix it up like later and like update the episode on Amazon Prime, but he specifically mentioned like that it looked pretty bad. So that might have just been like they ran out of time, because I know they shot all the episodes in order, like they didn't jump around. So like it was the last episode that they shot, so they had the least amount of time to make the special effects look as good as possible. Which I don't know, if it depends on if you think that's acceptable or not for a show with the amount of money that they're spending on it. But in general, I thought it was really cool. And I agree about like how they did the weaving of the one power to like kind of show that she is using some kind of magical ability. Because if there wasn't any of that shown, she would just be like waving her hands, and like you wouldn't have any visual feedback for what was actually happening. It's like in Harry Potter, they have the
superpowers,
wands.
and like always like summoning the energy always looks so funny if like the visual effects aren't there. Like, why is this person gyrating on the screen? It's really weird.
Yep. But I can't remember where I was going with that. But as I was saying, like with Harry Potter, like they have the wand, which is like a visual representation of how the magic is like acted out in the world. So I think just having that visual aid is really helpful for the viewer, just to understand kind of what's happening. And I mean, especially like with the fight scenes, like in the first episode, like watching Moraine and Lan duke it out with all of the Trollocs in Emond's Field, just like showing like how powerful she is. I think that was a really cool way to like demonstrate the Aes Sedai and like their capabilities and what they can do with the one power, just to kind of get the viewer I don't know what the word would be, like just to get them immersed in that whole world. So I don't know, anything else? High points of season 1, things you enjoyed? Were there any particular like scenes or character moments that you really enjoyed?
Scene. Oh, the one scene, I think it was episode 7, where we see Rand's mom, the Aiel woman.
Yes.
And
that
it just opens
scene
on this like white landscape, and this woman's like running. And then she goes all BA on all these guys. They're coming to like get her, and she's just like and then she turns around. She's pregnant, like 9 months pregnant, like very pregnant. And then she fights off like 10 people. That was just like I was like, that was a good scene.
Yeah, that was definitely the best cold open to the show. That one. Maybe second to I don't remember what episode it was. Maybe it was episode 3, the one where they have Logain going to that city and like destroying it, and he like converts that king to like help him and be on his side. I thought that was a really good cold open, just introducing us to Logain and who he was. And also the cold open for the last episode was really good. So we finally get to meet Luz Theron Telamon, who was actually in the prologue for book 1. So a lot of book fans were kind of upset that we didn't actually get to see the actual prologue to the book during the breaking of the world. But at least at the end of the episode, or at the end of the season, we got to see him as a character, although it's a different scene than we get in the book's prologue. But I just thought that was really cool as well, because at the end of that cold open, we get to see the reveal of like what the world was like before the breaking of the world, like this high sci-fi, flying vehicles, towering skyscrapers, and all of that kind of stuff. Just to kind of show that, yes, it's a high fantasy series, but there's also an element of science fiction to this whole series as well, where the world used to be much different than it is today, and how we're seeing the show in season 1. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool as well.
And one more. I got one more.
All right, one more.
The opening sequence, the giant loom. It's like the Wheel of Time, and it builds out
the credits or the title.
Very Game of Thrones-esque, but yeah. I really liked it. I'm a sucker for all those visual. Like, I love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I love the Daredevil opening on Netflix. I
Very
like this
good.
one.
Yep.
Those all take me in sometimes. So yeah, just kind of, it reminded me of how I think we've said this on the podcast before, that like God is weaving a beautiful tapestry, and he is, working all things together for our good and for the good of his people. And we are on the opposite side of this giant, gorgeous tapestry, and we just are in the in the webs of all the different patterns that are going on. And so we kind of see the backside, and we're not sure what the whole picture is, but that kind of visualization of what's going on with how God weaves the world. I thought that was good. Yeah.
It would have been cool to have it be like a Game of Thrones map with the Wheel of Time, but I understand why they couldn't have done that, because then they would just be like, oh, you're just ripping off Game of Thrones, are you? So, I mean, I understand why they didn't do it, but the tapestry is pretty cool. Just seeing, because it also goes into like the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, so it's like weaving, and and even like how they depict the one power, like her weaving, it's like little lines, like tendrils, like lines of thread that are moving around her. So there's a lot of like showing that it's kind of like a weave that's happening in the show. I don't know, any other high points? I'm trying to think if I can think of any scenes. Oh yes, one scene that I really enjoyed. I think it's in the scene whenever they all get reunited back in Tarvalon, which in the books would have been Camelin, but they all get reunited, and Moraine goes to take out the curse from Matt, and her like sucking out the power from his mouth, and then like watching her, it goes over her hand, and then like it's trying to like get into her mouth, and she's like sending it down her other hand and then back into the dagger. I just thought that was a really cool scene, because I enjoyed that scene in the book as well, and just seeing it come to life on the screen was also really well done.
That's where I was like, they chose Moraine well. Like that scene, I was like, yep.
Yeah, for sure.
They did a good job.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that was a really good scene as well. I think another scene that I really enjoyed was, which isn't even in the books, but it's this scene with Lan going to the funeral for his warder friend that commits suicide, and that funeral scene where he's like pounding his chest and screaming. That wasn't in the books, but that was like a super powerful scene, and that goes again to like the casting and the actors like really bringing it in terms of their performance, to like make you really feel like an emotional connection to the characters, and like seeing him, because in the books like Lan isn't like an emotional type character, so having that frame of reference
as a rock,
me having that frame of reference makes that scene really impactful because I haven't seen him be that emotional before. Which I don't know, can get into like, should the show be depicting him being that emotional this early on in the show? We can kind of maybe talk about that a little bit later, but just like that scene was really powerful. And you can also see Moraine feeling his pain as well, and she's like starting to cry as well because she can feel exactly what he's feeling. And
through
Rosamund
the border
Pike's, what's that?
Through the not the border,
the warder
bond.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was also a pretty powerful scene.
Yeah. He nailed that scene. It was really good.
Yeah, it was really good. I don't know, do you have any other scenes that you really enjoyed?
Nope, those were my highlights.
All right. Okay, now let's jump in. That doesn't mean that's the only good thing about the show, FYI. There are other good things that we just maybe didn't remember or didn't talk about, but now let's just jump into some of our low points, some of the things that we did not like about the show. I don't know, do you have anything off the bat?
So I kind of want to go into, because low points is kind of like I think I'd like to talk about discrepancy a little bit between the book and the show. So I don't feel like the show is not the Wheel of Time, the book. Like, yes. These are two different things. There are just so many little things that are not true to the original book that, like, I don't want to come off and say that they are negative things, but
sure.
I walked into it like the way most people are, like expecting it to be the book as a movie. Yep. And that is not what happened here. The characters are not wildly different, but they are not the same people that are in the books.
Yeah.
And I, like, once I swallowed that pill of, okay, I am not getting the book in the show. I am like, this is a Wheel of Time, like through the portal stone. You are not seeing these people as they are in the book. It's close.
Yes.
But this is a different storyline, and there are different choices being made, and there's different interactions with the characters.
Yeah.
And I think once I realized that, I started enjoying it more, because there's always this, like, you want to compare the book to the movie or to the other production of it, and it's just not the same. And so I can expand on that if you'd like me to go for that, or if you want to jump in here and tell us a little bit about your thoughts.
Yeah, I will definitely agree that it is not the book in TV show form. I think I've heard some people say that to like explain kind of how this is going is like, the books are one turning of the wheel and the show is another turning of the wheel, where
alternate dimension.
Yeah, it's the same story, and the ending will probably be the same or ish or very similar, but how they get there will be different, and the characters will make different choices. And so yeah, I agree. One of the and I think it was on the first episode, like on the first episode, they have like a bunch of bonus content on like each episode. They have like a behind the scenes little thing. And for the first episode, the showrunner Rafe was talking about how he, in order to make the show feel more adult, they had to age up all of the characters. So like they're all actually like a few years older than they were actually portrayed in the books. And that's so they could do things like make Rand and Egwene's relationship much more further along in book one than it actually was, because in the first book, like, there's not, like, they don't actually have that intimate relationship that they have in this season of the show. And so I think there was like deliberate choices made to make the show feel more adult and visceral, and trying to kind of have that Game of Thrones-esque kind of feel. So that's it's just kind of their like thought process on what they were trying to achieve, I guess.
Well, what I observed was, I definitely observed that Rand and Egwene are having this physical relationship, and
yes,
in the book, Rand is like,
yeah,
I would blush if she looked at me the wrong way in the bar,
yeah,
and and then like 10 minutes into the first episode, it's like, oh, after we had sex, we're gonna have this talk.
yes.
So that was one of the discrepancies where I was just like, this is a blend of our world, where these things are the way that they are. They over sexualized a lot of the characters. So Egwene and Rand having sex, and then Lan and Moraine sharing a hot tub together. Like, I don't think that would have happened in the book at all. There's a sense of propriety that Lan has. He's okay with getting naked with like the farm boys and in Barrelon and cleaning up, but there was always like a distinction between like men and women bathing together. And then Moraine's relationship with the Amerlin seat.
Yeah.
Like, they had a relationship before this. I was just like,
yeah.
like, what is, like,
yeah,
not true to source material right there. And I just,
well, caveat.
I get it.
Caveat, we have only read the first 2 books so far. So if there are things that are mentioned later on in the books that we're not aware of, they may have been pulling things in from later books into this first season. Because one of the YouTubers that I watched...
That is true. That is very true.
One of the YouTubers I watched specifically mentioned that scene, and he said that in the books, Moraine and the Amerlin seat, they're mentioned that they're like pillow friends. So it's like implied that there's some kind of romantic relationship there, but because of like when the books were written, that wasn't like a popular thing to do. So I'd actually, until I had watched that, I agreed with you. I was like, why did they have to make Moraine like, why is that even a thing in this first season? But I think that's just, they're pulling in something from that's implied later in the books, and that is beneficial for it now because that's like a popular thing to do, is to promote, the LGBTQ stuff, and to like have that as a part of your show.
That's true, because people are trying to normalize it, and
yes.
So,
and there's also the scene with Lan and Nynaeve. They have sex towards the end of the season as well, which doesn't really happen in the books either.
I just think that they over sexualized the characters in there. That was one thing, and then there's these other little things. Like, I remember watching the first episode, and I was like, minute 3, this happened. Minute 6, this happened. So let me read a quote here from the first episode. When the opening scene where they have the guy running away from the Red Aja, and they're going to gentle him, and the what's the leader of the Red Aja's name?
Leandrin.
Yep, Leandrin Sedai. So she walks up to the man and says, "This power is meant for women and women alone. It is a gift. When you touch it, you make it filthy." And boom, right there, I was just like, that is an ideological difference from the original Wheel of Time and then this version of it. Because she says, when you touch it as a male, you make it filthy. Yeah. Where in the books, it says that there's like a taint over the one power on the male side. And when they reach for the one power, they have to go through the taint. And so it's, kind of like original sin in a way. Like everything that the male does, it's going to be tainted by what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
And here, like, there's this, like, because you are a man and you are touching it, it's forbidden to you, and you are polluting it just by trying to do it. And I just picked up on that. I was like, nope, this is not from the book.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, it's already polluted. Like, them touching it doesn't make it better or worse. It's just the way that it is. So I think
in the book.
Yeah, in the book. Yeah. And I think they're trying to make the Red Sisters, like, they were trying to make you hate them, essentially, and they were trying to make it like I think they were trying to take their ideology to, like, the nth degree, and to, like, take it really far, just to make you really paint the picture between the ideological differences of the different Ajas. Because again, in the first book, like, you don't really get all of that political stuff of, like, ideological differences between the Ajas. Like, even towards even at the end of, like, book 2, like, we really don't get a ton of the political stuff with the Ajas. We get a lot more of it in book 2, but it's not nearly as much as we got in this first season of the television show. So yeah, I think that's one criticism I have of the show, is that I feel like they were trying to condense so much stuff into this first season that it was almost like they were losing some of the things from the first book that would have been good to show and more impactful. And instead of doing that, they just tried to pull in stuff from a bunch of other shows or a bunch of other books to kind of make it this more Game of Thrones-esque thing, whereas, like, there's this political intrigue and stuff like that. And I think they could have, if this was, like, maybe 10 episodes, I think they just needed a little bit more room to breathe in, like, this first season. I think especially, like, the first episode, like, we meet all of our characters, and then by the end of the first episode, we're already on the adventure. Like, how can you introduce all of the characters and everything in the Wheel of Time world, and then already have them, like, at a point where they're like, okay, we have to go on this adventure? It just seemed very, like, way too fast, and I don't know if you had a similar thought on that, or it's
no, same, but, like, that goes with the, what I was saying about the over sexualization. Like, I think that it is a combination of our world and the book world, and people who don't know this, they want it fast, and they want it to go, and yes, as book readers, we have sloshed through those chapters of pure background content information, and we drink it in, and we love it. It's also a little tedious, but it builds out the world so much better. And I think it's just about, I think this show does a really good job of getting people interested in the Wheel of Time. I think that it's getting, gaining momentum. It's becoming more mainstream for people to like it and to know it. I think that's all good. And I think they just hit the ground and said, like, we're going to make it fast paced. We're going to make it interesting, and we're going to go as fast as we can. And of course, I agree with you 100%. They fit, how many hours is the book? Like 20, I don't know page numbers. You know page numbers. Like, into 8 hours of content. So they could have taken more time, but I also think it's also about, they wanted to move it fast, and they wanted to make it hot and spicy for people who are new, because they didn't want to lose the viewer's attention on it.
Yes. Yeah. My whole point with that was just, like, I think they could have just taken a little bit more time to, like, really let us get to know the characters a little bit more, just because you're kind of, like, forced in, not like forced, but, like, they're just rushing all of these relationships. I think the acting is good, so that, like, it helps you, makes it more believable that they have these lives, and they're they're really good friends, and all of these different things. I think there was just some scenes that they could have included to, like, really make those relationships better.
In the first episode, also, like, there's just another little thing that, just the way, like, you're a man, you're tainting the one power that was just ideologically different from the book, was when Padon Thane comes into the Two Rivers and he's talking to Matt, and Matt is like, I stole this for you and now pay me money for it. I forget what he stole.
Sure.
And again, it was just like this fundamental difference that Matt Coffin is like a prankster. He's like a kid who's going to, cover the dogs in flour and let them run through the house. Yeah. Like, I don't think that he is a thief. I don't think that he was a person that would go into someone else's home that he knows and steal their stuff.
Yes.
And I just think that was a departure from the character of him. But as we see through the season, through the Wheel of Time episodes on Amazon Prime, it's like he is a darker character. At the end, he's not with the group, and he's off, I think, back at Shadar Logoth, where he found the dagger. And
no, I think I think he went back to Tarvalon.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
it just seemed like he's darker.
Yeah. And yeah, also another thing with Matt and his kind of backstory is, like, they made his parents, like, or his father specifically, like, really crap humans. Like, his father's an abuser and all of this stuff, which is not the case in the book. And so, like, just, I don't know, there's like things that they, like, decisions that they make to, like, make the characters more interesting in the show and, like, give them more, I guess,
they make them like people in our world, like people that are, that they have the father that was abused, not like they're trying to identify with the audience versus like being true to the source text, like not this little backwater town where there's the same 150 people year after year. It's just like a connection thing. Like, oh, we've all known the guy who abuses his wife and cheats around and womanizes and stuff. I mean, I don't think I know that guy. I probably have met him and didn't realize it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it just seems to me like some of those things were just completely unnecessary. Like, I don't feel like that
added depth to the character.
Like, you could have just used normal book Matt, and had him just been like a prankster and more like a happy character. But I guess they just wanted to have, like, within the party somebody who felt like more pulled towards the dark side, I guess, in a way, and to kind of have that struggle within the group. Yeah, because maybe if they would have done it, maybe whenever he gets the dagger, and then they can kind of see that pull towards the dark, which actually does happen in the book. So you can still have the character of Matt that's more true to the book towards the beginning, but then you can have him kind of get pulled to that more darker side of himself whenever he gets the dagger, because the dagger is feeding off of its own darkness and then the darkness that's inside Matt as well. And so that's, I don't know that you necessarily had to, like, completely change his backstory as a character to have it feel like he is a darker character, because like he doesn't really get cured towards the very end of book one. So and even still, he's not completely cured. He still has some connection to that dagger. So yeah, there's just small stuff like that. And there's also, I think also has to do with, like, the aging up of all the characters is, like, Perrin's backstory. Like, they have him have a wife already, and then he kills her on accident, which is why he doesn't want to use the axe anymore. So I don't know that, again, like, it's why, like, is that change necessary?
By the whole,
like, what is that giving
married thing? I was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, but I understand what you were saying at the beginning, whenever you were talking about, like, you have to swallow the pill that is saying this is not going to be a retelling of book one in the Wheel of Time. It is like, I was always telling,
it's the multiverse. It's a different experience with the same people.
Yeah. I was always telling my wife Katie about like I was saying, this TV show is inspired by the Wheel of Time. It is not the Wheel of Time, because if you read the books, it is not the same story. So yeah. I don't know, any other what else you got?
Yeah, there was one more thing I was trying to think about, just the difference in the characters. So I also huge departure from the book, and I understand why. The Dragon Reborn could be a man or a woman.
Exactly.
And it just, if you're following the book, it has to be a man.
Yes.
Because the dragon is a man, and he broke the world. He's responsible, and the reason why there are no male Aes Sedai is because he broke and tainted the power, and everyone who is male and touches the power is doomed to go mad. And I get it. It's from my perspective, it seems like it's about saying that men and women are equal, which is something that in media and in cinema has not been the case. You know, in like the 50s, they're so misogynistic, and like the women are like completely helpless, and the man has to come in and like be the big strong guy, or like do the smart thing, and you know, let's walk through this door and we'll be saved, and I don't know. And so I do like I'm all about empowering women and having strong female leads, because now every time Vivian watches a movie on Disney, it's about a strong woman. Like we watch Frozen, and we watched Encanto, and which was really good, by the way. I recommend it. It is heavy into musical theater, so just be aware of that going in. But it was very good, and I'm all about that. But if you go to the source text, like, there's no way that it could be a woman. I do like that they made all 5 of them Taviran, because I was like, in the book, I was like, why aren't they Taviran? Like, the world is changing around, you know, Egwene and Nynaeve. Like, maybe not as much.
I thought they were all 5 Taviran in the book.
I thought, yeah, I think only the 3 boys were identified as Taviran. I could be wrong. But that's what I thought I remembered. But yeah, I think that regardless, I think all 5 of them should be Taviran, even though it's not, you know, I thought it was kind of weird that, and maybe I got it wrong, but I thought Robert Jordan only put that the 3 boys were Taviran. I really like that. What's that?
I was just saying, I don't remember the specifics, but yeah.
And so again, I was just like, departure from the book, and it's hard. It was hard for me, like, for the first couple of episodes, and I'm usually like not like this. I'm very much like, you go in, it's going to be the experience that it is. But I just like, because we've done this podcast and we've like analytically jumped into our thoughts about it, like the differences just sprung out at me, like the departures in like the characters and the way that they behaved. So I like, it's really weird because it sounds like I didn't enjoy the experience because all I can do is point out discrepancies, but I'm having fun with it, and I don't think that all of them are wrong. So
going off of like that was one thing I really did not like. It was just that they had to say that the dragon could be male or female. We don't know which one it's gonna be. And I get like the whole women empowerment thing, but like the Wheel of Time is like super already empowering to women, like in the book. Like, men cannot use magic. Like, there's a whole order of women magic users, and they basically like run a lot of the world. And so like I feel like there's already enough in like the women empowerment thing to like just having it, just like that departure from the book is just like, why does that even need to be there? Because like the whole point of the Dragon Reborn is that it's a man. Like, that's the whole point of it. That's why it's gonna be something crazy that's happening, because they have the power to either destroy the world or to like remake it and fix it. So Yeah, I just didn't really, again, like things that are just unnecessary that they didn't really need to change, but they just wanted to, for some reason. Yeah, that was a big one for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that one bothered me the least out of all of them.
Oh, really?
Just yeah, like yeah, I was annoyed with some of what did I mention? Just like why make Matt like a dark like a me like a
Yeah.
you know a person who's gonna steal from people that he knows and I was just confused by Perrin being married. It's like
Yeah.
I kind of didn't even realize it until at the end. He's like, I loved my wife.
Yeah.
I loved her.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he's married in this version.
And then towards the end, there was like in the last episode, I think it was, maybe it was
let's talk about the final encounter.
Well, like before that, like with the characters, there's like that weird love triangle thing where it's like you like Perrin is supposedly loves Egwene, and which I think was a little bit hinted at in the books, but I think maybe just the scene was just weird, and it was like really teen drama-y, and it just like felt out of place for like what was happening around them. Like there's an army of people coming here to kill us, and like we're sitting here worried about who likes who. It's like let's all get our priorities straight here, folks. Which I feel like if they aged up the characters, like we would have been able to avoid stuff like that, like the teen drama kind of stuff. But you know, whatever. Maybe that scene just didn't really land with me. But yeah, the final encounter. So it is different. Yeah, there's just so much stuff that's different from the books. Because in the books they all go to the Eye of the World together, and there's in the show we do not get to meet the Green Man, the protector of the Eye of the World, so we don't even get to meet him, which was too bad because I thought that could have been a cool encounter.
Yeah, it would have been great to see him portrayed.
Yeah, and then we also don't get any of the Forsaken. It's just Rand versus Beelzemon, the Dark One. And yeah, which again is too bad because that would have added some more world building. We could have gotten to see like just the power of those
Carapace head. What's his name?
Yeah.
The Forsaken.
Agenor.
Yeah.
That was one of the Forsaken.
I wanted to see Carapace head.
Yeah. Was that the other one that the Green Man killed?
Yeah.
I don't remember. But
him and Agenor.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the ending of the Eye of the World like wasn't amazing. But there was like the scene with the women Aes Sedai going to defend because like the Tarwin's Gap, like that wall, that little fortress that they had at the gap there, had fallen, and so all the enemies are pouring through. And they make this like, they just like lay waste to all of the army because they like channel like the women who's I think his sisters with Lord Agomar. She's like leading them, and she's like she's channeling the one power like through all of them to like so that she can.
She's
get, like,
using them
superpowered.
like batteries.
Yeah, essentially.
She's like, let me draw on your strength, and I'll do the zapping.
Yeah. Which is a pretty big departure from the book. Yeah, it does kill 3 of them because she basically like it's too much power for them to handle. And like the whole thing with the one power is if like you take in too much one power than you've ever had before and you don't know how to control it all, it'll just like burn you out. And literally that is what happens to some of the women there. They just get like their face like crumbles and like singes and like burns their eyes out, which is good like special effects and a good visual for like what that process would be like. but again, it's just like completely different from the book. Like in the books, like they all go to the Eye of the World, and none of them are back there in that battle or even related to that battle at all. And Rand is the one who goes and defeats all of the armies.
Yeah, which would have been like really cool. Like, and I think they could have done that because it would have shown like just how powerful Rand is going to be as the Dragon Reborn. I think that would have been a cool, like, it is real. Like I said, I had to reread that part several times to be like, okay, he teleported to the battlefront, and then he like lightninged and earthquaked all the Trollocs dead, and then he walked up the invisible staircase in the sky and went and fought the Dark One on a different plane of existence. Like that was it was like a lot to wrap my head around, but at the same time, like Rand is the Dragon Reborn, and we don't see him like like he kind of channels, when he's going against the Dark One.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even get the reveal of the Dragon Reborn until episode 9, right? Yeah, it's like it doesn't even tell us that he is the Dragon Reborn until then. So we don't get so whenever we get that reveal, we get things like flashbacks to like different portions of the season where like he was channeling, we just didn't know. Like whenever he knocks down the door at that scene in the Four Kings with the little maid, and then whenever he channels in the ways to protect Egwene, different scenes, just showing like that he was the one who was channeling in those different scenarios. So, yeah, I guess I'm trying to view this as like, if you're not a book reader, I think the way they did it with like having the mystery of like who it was and having the reveal towards the end, I think it was like well executed because that's what they were going for. So like if I was not a book reader, I probably would have thought it would have been Nynaeve because she was shown to be super powerful. She could heal all these people. And she makes that big force field in the ways to keep out the wind, the black wind or whatever. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. The Mashadar. So like I think that.
No, it's Mon Chin Chin. Sorry, Mashadar.
Yeah. Mashadar is from Shadow Logoth. Yeah.
Yep.
And it couldn't have been. I don't think it could have been Matt because he was like doing with the darkness and all that kind of stuff. And then Perrin, we know, has this thing with the wolves, so I don't think it could have been him. So I think the only two it basically come down to Moraine, Egwene, or not Moraine, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Rand. And I don't know. And because Rand had never been shown to channel throughout the whole first season until that reveal, maybe that was like an indicator that was going to be him because we haven't seen him do anything basically the whole season. But yeah. Another thing with that scene with the women, with the channeling and that kind of stuff, like they kill the whole army and all the Trollocs, and then like she can't like turn off the power, like she's killing her friends because she can't like make it stop or whatever, and so she burns herself out and kills herself. But then also Nynaeve, basically somehow she's able to channel the power that's going she's able to take the power that's going through Egwene and channel it through herself so that Nynaeve gets burnt out and not Egwene. And so Nynaeve gets killed, she gets burnt out, she dies, as what we're led to believe. And then for some reason Egwene can just channel and just heal her for some reason. And why doesn't she heal the other women that are also with her? That scene was just really weird. It's because her love
that runs so deep for Nynaeve that she is able to do this intuitively.
Yeah, don't give the love excuse.
It's the only possible
explanation. I don't know. That scene was just weird. I did not like it at all. It was a cool visual, but like it was just completely unnecessary. I guess they just had to do that because
they had to have the battle at the
they had to have the battle
to show this Trolloc army.
And I think the issue they had because in the first book they don't like the other characters don't really have much to do at the end. It's basically just going to be Rand and the Dark One and the Forsaken and all those people. And Moraine, of course, is there. But like the other characters don't really do much of anything, and they're just kind of
right
in the side. Like we don't even really know what happened with them. I think they all got like maybe the Forsaken like incapacitated a bunch of them. I can't remember all the specifics, but that's prime example of like they don't really do much of anything. And so I think they in the show they had to like feel like they had to give all these other characters something to do, whereas in the books they didn't have anything to do. And so they're just gonna take things that Rand did and just give them to the other characters, which I don't know. I don't really think that undermines like the power that the Dragon Reborn is displaying, I guess. And so, like, because you take those things away from Rand, you're not really seeing how powerful he's gonna be. And yeah, again, just like things that were changed that maybe weren't really necessary, and they take away from like the character development for other characters. And yeah, I like especially the first two books, it's basically all Rand. Like it's just Rand's story. I haven't read the third book yet, but I think that's just the problem with trying to adapt it in a TV show sense, is that the first two books are basically all about Rand, and we only get a few side chapters from other characters' points of views. So I understand like why they have to make some changes to like make the other characters more interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying it was maybe handled maybe a little poorly. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the end scene.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I was just, again, I was just more like confused. Like, what? Okay, all right. We got these Aes Sedai. They're gonna show their power. And then the Angreal showed up in the last little bit there, like to tell Rand to channel all of his power. Yep. I was kind of underwhelmed by their choice of the Dark One. I was just like, it's a guy.
Yeah.
Like
True.
kind of like a Europe. I don't know. Was he European?
Yeah, I don't know. He was something. I think that the choice they made with him is specifically referencing things that happen later in the books of like who he actually is as a character, who the Dark One is. So I think that might be just laying the foundations for.
Oh, I thought it was cool when Rand shot him with the arrow, and that was a cool scene. And he pushed it in, and and then it took all the burn marks away from him.
Yeah.
Because apparently, he channels so much of the power that he's getting burned physically, and then he's also like healing at the same time. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Did we sound negative? I feel like
we are sounding pretty negative. But
okay, so just disclaimer for our listeners. Like it is hard to separate the analytical part of my mind, knowing that I'm going to talk about this on the podcast and like looking for things to talk about. It's tough because like I want to like it because I feel like if someone was watching it cold turkey, they'd really enjoy it. And I feel like it's good for the Wheel of Time. Like it's getting exposure and popularity.
Yes.
But at the same time, like we looked at the book and, we've only read, we've both at this point have read both books, like the first two books.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the next podcast on The Great Hunt and The Horn of Valier. And that's all coming, but it is very difficult for us to sit there and talk about the books on the podcast and then know that we're going to talk about the show and not look for things that are different. So, just again, I thought it was a good show, and I am still in a place where I'm struggling with it not being the book, and deviating from the source material. But it's important that we just look into those things and see like how are things different and what decisions were being made. And it's just because it's fun to talk about it that way. But please don't think that we were overly negative, because I think we both really enjoyed the show.
Yeah, I think like as just a show by itself, if I'm not doing any comparisons to the book, I think it's a good show. Like if I didn't watch the Wheel, if I didn't read the books and I wasn't coming at this from a book to TV show comparison, then I would say like, yeah, this is a really great show and I would enjoy watching this. Like for example, I'm watching The Witcher. I actually just finished season 2 of The Witcher today as of recording this. And I think The Witcher season 2 is so good, whereas The Witcher season 1 was so-so. But I'm not somebody who read The Witcher books, so I don't have any frame of reference for what was in the books or how it was changed for the show. So, and I think like the Wheel of Time can do something similar, where maybe it has a rocky first season and lots of people give their opinions and feedback and what did or didn't work in that first season, and they can make really good adjustments and change things for the second season. So like even as a person who didn't read the books, like I wasn't a huge, like season 1 was good, but it was like kind of disjointed and some of the chronology was a little off, because like I didn't necessarily know when things were happening to which people and when those things were happening to those different characters and how it all fit together. But season 2 is much more, we're here and we're going through this storyline and all of the characters are in one timeline, and it just makes the story much more cohesive and easy to follow. That's my season 2 of The Witcher quick review there for you, if you haven't seen it, which is a great show, by the way. You should go watch it.
My wife has watched it. It seems pretty cool. I haven't seen
I would recommend
it yet.
But I think, yes, this show is good. The problem is we're looking at it specifically from a book perspective. And whenever you do that, and I have to know that the showrunner, Rafe Judkins, knew that this was going to happen. He knew that there were going to be hardcore book fans who were going to riot and have their pickets and their signs and all of that kind of stuff. He had to know that this was going to happen. And but the problem is he was trying to make a show that was as good as possible for both portions of the fan base, the people who never read the books and the people who are hardcore book fans. And he had to try to do something that was down the middle, which honestly is an impossible task. Like there was no way that he was going to be able to make something that was as true to the books as possible and also pull in a bunch of fans. Yeah, exactly. The books are really slow. And so you could not just follow the Eye of the World, chapter by chapter. Like that was never going to work for a TV show, especially in a post Game of Thrones world. It's just not, it was just unfeasible. I think the only thing is like podcasts like this and like people doing episode breakdowns and giving their thoughts on all the different episodes. Like all of these things can just maybe help the showrunners like listen to the feedback and what people who've read the books think about the decisions they made and like things to change. Now of course some things they can't like go back and fix because they've already been done in the first season, like changing the backstories for the characters like Perrin and Matt and making them kind of different than where they were, how they are in the books. Like you can't really go back and fix and change those things. But I think they can take a lot of like the feedback to heart and kind of make season 2 better the way that The Witcher did. So I don't know. That was kind of like my final verdict. I'm trying to think of like what I would rate this show. I feel like that's like a hard question because I think it's a good show.
Okay, so here's how you're going to do it. You're going to rate it once for as a book lover and once for as a standalone product.
Okay. And Gabe's, is that your cat that's crawling across the screen?
Yes, it is. This is Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor.
The cat that Jenna and I bought together because she had 2 dogs and I had 2 cats, and Luthor's the linchpin, and he's chewing on the electrical cord, and Yeah. You be good over here. Okay, sorry.
Cool. Yeah, so as a book fan, I feel like I have to give this like a 6 or something. Because it's if you're going into the show thinking it's going to be like the book, you're just going to be disappointed. And like that was like the first few episodes where I was just like, this just isn't really hitting what I wanted it to be, you know? But I think as just its own show, and if I hadn't read the books and I was just coming into it with no knowledge of the Wheel of Time, I mean, I would probably have to give this like an 8, something like that. I mean, it's a good show. It's just not the same as the book. That's just the way it is. So, I don't know. What's your rating? Final verdict. Final thoughts?
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on the 6. I feel like, and I want like, and then like not, and then again like 8.5 for like it being a show. If I had just gone into it cold turkey.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're just we are not in the majority. We are the people who want to look at this stuff and want to talk about the things. And,
yeah.
And that's okay because we'll have our niche. We'll have people who want to hear about these thoughts on the Wheel of Time and how it compares to the books. Because when you get into a topic, you just kind of want to hear a lot of different opinions on it. So yeah. I think this is so like I think I will be more prepared for season 2 when we go into season 2, because then I'll be like, okay, because we left it at completely like Moraine is like stilled at the end of the
that's
first
another thing. Yeah,
season
and Matt is not with the
like
party.
This is a departure from.
Yes.
So like just going into season 2 knowing things are not the same as the book. Yep. It is going to be, much different.
Yes.
And I think I'll be able to better enjoy the ride and not just be wrong spotting the whole time. Oh, that's not right. Oh, that's not right. Because that just totally comparison is the thief of joy. I think that was said by Roosevelt.
Sean Cannell.
One of those yeah. One of those important people. Yeah. And I'm like comparing the book to the show. So, yeah, but I have a friend who is like, oh yeah, my friend's watching it. They're like, oh, this is the best show on television. Like, you got to tune in and watch it. And like, that's a person who hasn't read the book. And I'm like, yeah. Like, and I think my wife was just getting into book 1 of The Wheel of Time. And I think watching the first season helped it like explain the summary of the story arc kind of in general.
Yes.
And then she's like listening to the book, so I think it's going to help her kind of have the story arc in her head before she goes through the long version with the book.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so like just thoughts on like season 2 potential and like what they could do. Some interesting things that happened at the end of season 1 is you mentioned earlier that Moraine is, so I don't think she's gentled. So I think there's something where like Baelzamon or the Dark One told her that you have the one power and it's like at your fingertips, but you just can't access it. So it's like something like where there's like a block that she's not able to get past to like access her power, whereas with gentling it's like they completely remove your even access to it, like you can't even feel it anymore. And that's like why the people go and that's why the people kill themselves, because they feel like they're dead inside and they can't access something that they had before. And so I think it's slightly different though for what she's experiencing, and that could be something that happens later on in the books that we're not aware of, because in book 2, at least, there's a lot.
Makes me want to just go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's right. Because in book 2, there's a large. In book 2, there's a large portion of the story where like Moraine is like not really around, and she's like off I think she's back at the White Tower or something, but we're kind of on a journey with some of the other characters. We don't really get to see a lot of what's happening with Moraine. And they could be pulling something that happens later on in the books and bringing it to the forefront of this season, which is something that they've done in this first season anyways. Like, they're pulling things from other books to really flesh out the world a little bit more, especially all the stuff with the Aes Sedai, because in book 1, like, we never even go to Tar Valon, basically the whole book, right? I don't think we ever go there. But in this book, they skip a ton of different cities, and they basically just make it about Emmonsfield and Tar Valon.
We don't meet the Queen.
Yeah, and Fal Dara. Yeah, we don't meet the Queen. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I think would be really cool to see in season 2. Stuff with Rand meeting the Queen and Elaine and those different characters would be interesting to see. And there's also, I'm really interested to see like all the stuff with Selene, who's a book 2 character that he meets along the way. I think she's a super interesting character, so I'm excited to see who they cast for her, and how that all goes. So, and there's also like the little tease that they had that like towards the very end of the last episode of all the ships coming in, and I think that's like the
Shan-Chan.
Yeah, the Shan-Chan. So I think that's just like tease for where they're going for book 2, which is good because the Shan-Chan have a pretty large part to play in the second book. So yeah, looks like they're going to tackle that storyline, and the Hunt for the Horn, because we had Padan Fain take the horn, and he got out of Fal Dara, and he's on the run with it. So
that's basically where book 2 begins, is the Hunt for the Horn.
Yep, for sure. There are some interesting changes though, like Lord Agomar, I guess he was killed in the battle. He got like that spear through his chest. I don't know if you remember that scene. And we didn't get to meet Lord Ingtar, or Commander Ingtar.
Well, we met Uno.
Uno
with the guy with the one eye. He was in there.
But didn't they all get killed with Padan Fain attacking them? That's the thing. Like, I don't know who got killed in that scene, and like, was Lord Ingtar a part of that crew that got killed? So yeah, it's just. And the other thing is, Rand said he's just gonna go off by himself at the end of this episode. Like, Rand is just gonna go off by himself, and Lan is gonna take Moraine back to, I guess, the White Tower or something. So it seems weird because like they're setting up like the Hunt for the Horn, but they're also saying that Rand is gonna go off by himself, whereas that doesn't really happen in the second book.
Well, that was his plan. He wanted to leave and go off by himself.
Yeah, he did.
And then he couldn't make himself leave Fal Dara, and he kind of just fell into this rhythm with Lan and training, and I mean they've set up the start of the second book basically. They were in the Blight, the horn is stolen, the Shan-Chan are coming, like it, those three things are kind of what the second book is about. So I guess we're gonna see what life through the portal stone is, and yes, I'm interested in how they cast Selene. I'm interested to see the Grome as a animated character.
Yeah,
like
those beasts,
the bear, the bear frog things. Yeah,
and I'm also interested to see how they handle like Rand and his channeling. Like, does he learn more? Like, how does that progress? Because if he's going off by himself, like, he doesn't have anyone to like teach him anything. So yeah.
I'm interested in about if they'll show him in the void, because they go into that more in the second book about him achieving the oneness and the void. So I'm interested if they'll like show him like focus and like the world just kind of drops away, and if they'll go into that.
Yeah. Which in book 2 there's some pretty sweet scenes, especially towards the end. They're like, well, I won't really talk about it because we'll do episodes on that, but there's some pretty cool scenes with Rand in book 2 that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested
So
to see how
I
they
guess
handle
we're
this.
gonna. Yeah, we're gonna. I think we're gonna do the hunt for the horn, and we're gonna fight the Shan Chan. I think that's what's on the docket. And we'll definitely hit up Camelin with all the Game of Thrones, Dias de Damar, the Game of Houses.
Oh, not
I think
Camelin.
we'll see that too.
Carahine or something.
Oh yeah.
I can't
Carian.
remember. Carian.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yep, it's Carian.
Different town. There's too many towns, too many cities.
That's okay.
But yes,
books.
that
There's
will be
lots of
interesting
space.
sequence as well, because you get to see all of the that will be really the Game of Thrones portion of the season for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I just this whole thing with all of these shows like only being like 8 episodes, I just feel like that is not enough time to really do the source material justice. So like Game of Thrones at least had 10 episodes per season, and this only has 8. So that's basically 2 less hours that they have every season to do character building and world building and flesh out the story and that kind of stuff.
Well, they're gonna have 14 seasons. I mean, there's 14 books, right?
Yeah, okay. If they
that was a joke, everyone.
Yeah.
I think they're not gonna have.
I think they can get that that's a joke. We should never expect anything to go over, like, if anything goes over 5 seasons, it's a successful show. I think they've sketched out like 7 or 8, if I remember correctly, hearing from one of those bonus materials episodes that I watched. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Again, I'm looking at this from the critical book perspective, but if you've never read the book, you're probably gonna love this show and love season 2 and love where it goes, because I think everything around the show, like the showrunner is really good. He knows what he's doing. Again, I think all the casting is really well done. One caveat though, for season 2, they have recast Matt. So Barney Harris, I think, was the actor in season 1, so he is no longer on the show. Which I think is one of the reasons that they had to make the change to Matt, because he left the show, and so they weren't able to shoot with him in the last few episodes. So they basically just had to take him out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because they shot the show in chronological order of the episodes.
Do you know why he's not with the show?
Nobody knows.
Was that his choice, or
it was his choice. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. Which again, it's not the showrunner's fault. I think they had originally planned for him to go with everybody else. So because that was the last episode he shot, and that was the last episode they had, that's just where they had to have him go off by himself and not go into the ways with everybody else. So that's another thing for season 2. How will the new actor playing Matt do? Yeah, I mean, I think Barney Harris did a really good job as portraying Matt. So I think he'll have some big shoes to fill for sure. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, because he's not with the rest of the party. He's still back at Tar Valon, and everybody else is up at Faldara. So it'll be interesting to see like how they reconcile that and what they're going to do with that whole plot line with Matt. Because in book 2, he's basically with the whole party. He's with Rand and Perrin for most of the book. So yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. But yeah, I'm hopeful that it will still be a really good show. And yeah, I just have to keep reminding myself that it's not the same as the book. It's never going to be, and to not be super critical of like the changes, even though I really want to see different things that are in the book happen in the show, but we can't always get what we want, can we?
Can't always get what you want.
No, I can't. I don't know. Any final thoughts, Gabe, on the show, season 2, whatever you want to talk about?
I am, I'm looking forward to season 2, and like I said, I think it'll be easier to go into the second season knowing that it's just a different experience. And I think the first season was all about just swallowing that bitter pill. We're not getting the book. But it opens an opportunity, and that's what I don't want to like miss out on, is that like we are getting to see the Wheel of Time, but like a new twist on it, and a new, you know, it's they're creating something new. And I love being nostalgic and looking at old things, but at the same time we need to keep our minds open for new things to see how they go, because sometimes they'll surprise you and be better than you thought they would.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't. I was a little bit too young to remember stuff with Lord of the Rings whenever that came out. But I know from reading other people who saw the movies when they first came out, saying like that people, whenever Fellowship of the Ring came out, like people were really mad about some of the changes that were made to the first movie. Like there was no Tom Bombadil. They brought in Arwen as a more prominent character and replaced a different character with her. So there was just some things that people really weren't happy about with the Lord of the Rings as a movie franchise. And now it's considered like one of the best like book to movie adaptations ever made. Some of the greatest films of all time. And I have the same hope for things like The Witcher and The Wheel of Time, that they could, have that level of status within the fantasy community of like, these aren't the same as the book, but they're amazing for what they are. I think that's like an important thing to remember as we go along. Yeah. And I think that's a good place to end it. So those are our thoughts on The Wheel of Time season 1 as book readers, not as completely foreign to the show or to the books. So if you have not seen The Wheel of Time, you should definitely check it out. If you're a book fan, you should check it out for sure. If you've never seen the show or the book at all, I would recommend it. It's good time, good acting, good action, a lot of fun. So the next episode, we're going to be doing some discussion on book 2 of The Wheel of Time. It's called The Great Hunt. And so we're going to be hunting for the Horn of Valere. And yes, that's going to be what we're doing next. If you want to get more content from Pages of Light, you can head over to our website, pagesoflight.com. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those different things. If you want to support us, make sure you go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe so you can watch the video version of the podcast. And you can follow Gabe as well. You can check out what he's doing at neighborhoodnerdservices.com. And yeah, links for all of those things will be in the description. I'll put a link to the Wheel of Time show, but I'm sure you can find it easily enough just search it on Amazon. And yeah, thanks for tuning into our discussion today. There wasn't a ton of talk about Christian worldview stuff, but that's okay. We'll get back to more of that in the next episodes. So make sure you keep reading and remember to share the gospel with somebody this week. And we will see you guys in the next episode.
See you next time.